Welcome to the Homegrown Podcast, a place where we share the truth about food and farming from our kitchen to yours. I'm your host, Liz Hazelmeyer, along with my husband, Joey.
Good afternoon.
And together we hope to inspire, educate, and equip you in your pursuit of true nourishment. I have to say, we're probably like one of the very few podcasts to be over a year old and still not have a jingle.
You want a jingle?
Maybe that's our jingle.
Just the sound of coffee.
Just the sound of coffee pouring. I don't want a jingle. I just think it's funny. I intentionally say the intro live every time. It's just something I like to do.
Yeah.
Feels like I'm saying it fresh. Anyways, today's episode is a glucose follow-up Q&A style response to last week's episode, which, by the way, you guys loved. Which is super exciting and cool because it's a topic that Joey and I have been really interested in, and obviously one we've been nerding out on and continuing to learn and go deeper into. But I love that sometimes just the conversations that Joey and I have resonate with y'all, and it's been super fun to see. So we collected a bunch of questions via Instagram. I also got some questions through my DMs, and then we got some questions via email. And I pulled, 8 or 10 of the top kind of questions, and that's what you and I are going to discuss. Joey doesn't know these questions yet, so he will kind of be responding.
Well, I talked about a few.
We talked about a few.
I'm not going in blind.
True.
But like impaired.
This isn't a rehearsed episode.
Yeah.
This is a casual.
Which ones do we rehearse?
Yeah, exactly. None. Welcome to the Homegrown Podcast. Anyways, that's why I have my laptop in front of me. Today's going to be a little more, I'm focused in on this. I'll try to make eye contact with you, Joe. And hopefully we'll get some of your questions answered. So thanks for pouring yourself coffee and none for me. I'm going to go ahead and do that.
I don't know if you wanted any.
I do want a little spot. What is this?
Honduras.
Yeah.
You stay in that Honduras game.
Yeah, it's
I also like to finish a bag. I'm a completionist.
I don't feel that way.
Before I open the next bag.
No, I want them all open.
See?
I want to smell them and I want them all open. By the way, side tangent before we jump in. Ruthie had a brilliant idea. She smelled the coffee.
Ruthie's our 7-year-old.
She smelled the coffee bag and she said, you should put this in a magazine the same way they have fragrance inserts in a magazine. You know, when you're a kid, maybe not when you're a kid, but when I was a kid and I would go through the magazine and like rub it all over myself because it had a sample of the fragrance.
She told me we should put it in our body soap for Hazelmeyer Goods. I was like, yo.
Because it smells so
low
good.
Key, like if that was some way we could pull that off, call it like the coffee scrub,
Interesting.
into that.
We'll work on that. Anyways, that's hilarious.
You might see Ruthie's coffee scrub hit the market here soon.
That's fantastic. All right. Jumping in.
Glucose questionnaire. This is a bonus episode. We'll drop this probably, tomorrow?
Oh, I thought we were dropping this on Wednesday. I thought
or
this
Wednesday.
was a standard episode.
Standard episode. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. See how we're feeling.
Anyways, glucose. If you're just now tuning in, this is a bad episode to start on. One, because it's a kind of follow-up Q&A. And make sure you listen to episode, what was that, 70 of the Homegrown.
It's called Glucose 101.
Mm-hmm. Go listen to that before you listen.
This is 102.
Oh, babe, I've told you multiple times. It's 201.
Yeah.
It was 101, 201.
Yeah. Okay.
You're doing that on purpose?
A little bit.
All right. First question here. Like I said, go listen to the original glucose podcast. But someone said, how do you feed your kids with glucose in mind? I got this question a lot from a bunch of different people. So if you remember the topics we covered in last week's episode, kind of talking about there's a particular way you can order your foods to make sure that glucose isn't hitting as hard. If you're consuming a carb diet of any kind, we're assuming we're not eating low carb or no carb. Okay, we're consuming carbs on a regular basis. So how can we feed our kids with that in mind? And
how do we feed our kids with what in mind?
Glucose.
So
regulation.
So the question is, how do you feed your kids with glucose in mind? One, I would say we talked about that in the sense that we like to put our food in a certain kind of order.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think maybe they're asking, like, we don't avoid it, and we're not like, don't have cookies. Like,
right.
You know, we probably have some cookies from the week, this weekend in the house right now.
Mm-hmm.
We made scones today with tea.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. And this is how I answered it in the DM as well. I have conversations with our kids when they're age appropriate and say, first of all, I'm not going to start your day off first thing in the morning with a muffin, a scone, a pancake, whatever.
Totally.
I literally ask them to eat a carrot first. I'm like, get some kind of fiber in you and build your base layer. And they'll do that. They'll 8:30, 9 a.m. in the morning, they'll eat a carrot, and then we can move into, okay, let's make pancakes, whatever. Today's example was frozen blueberries and bacon.
Yeah. And I think that's really what it's all about, is less about avoiding certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do some of that in certain times.
Totally.
Meaning, and by avoiding, more or less structured approach to food. So we're giving our kids some form of structure, right? We are in some capacity sheltering them from things that food-wise we think would be unhealthy for their development. But also, exactly what you said. For us, it's how do we help condition them so they have an education and understanding to approach food going forward with their own lives. Sophie's 12. In 6-7 years, she could be out on her own. Mm-hmm. And crossing my fingers. Anyways, I'm just kidding. But our kids, I want them to be all of the demystify food for them, right? Mm-hmm. Give them the education so that when they're thinking about their own meals and they start to feel different ways, they can go back in their head and be like, when I was a kid growing up, if I was feeling this way, I was often told, like, maybe I needed more protein. Why am I so crashing on energy right now, like right after lunch? Well, maybe I didn't start my morning off really super well. All these sorts of things.
Okay, here's a great
Also, kids are super active.
Yeah.
You can be a little bit less crazy about this.
True. Your
kids aren't sitting in an office all day long.
Yeah, that's so true.
Ray's running around all day long. So a little bit of extra glucose isn't going to kill them.
Kids in school are sitting down a lot of the day.
Our kids don't, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think in general, kids are way more active than adults.
If we all ate like 7 and 8 year olds, we would be
energy.
Everyone
maxed.
has different needs.
Yeah.
An adult and a child are a little bit different.
True. Here's a great example of that. So the other week, Sophia was on a trip with my parents. And later that evening, I got a call and it was like, hey, Sophie's kind of feeling weird. She might just be homesick, whatever. And my mom goes, I asked Sophie what was wrong. And Sophie said, sometimes when I don't eat a good breakfast, I feel bad throughout the day. Mm-hmm. She literally had that language because she did. She left at like 8 o'clock in the morning. They had a 3-hour drive. I highly doubt she ate something super
She probably got some fast food on the way there.
I don't even think they ate. I think she might have eaten like a bar or something. And so it was like
sitting in the car, bunch of sugar.
So she can put language to that as a 12-year-old and say, hey, when I don't start my day off right, sometimes I feel kind of bad. And she went the rest of the week feeling better.
And that's the goal.
Right.
The goal is to get our kids to be able to articulate that rather than, well, we don't let our kids have X, Y, and Z.
And I don't set the example by saying like, oh, I would never eat that carb. Like, I don't say things like that. I don't say, oh, if I eat, I'm cheating today. If I eat this,
There's no cheating.
I don't ever say in any of those words. I think it's okay and appropriate to say, hey, let me educate you on how to structure your food so that when you're a grown adult, you can say, yeah, waking up in the morning and eating a pastry first thing is the worst thing I can do.
And it translates, right? These educational understandings of how what we ingest affect our body, I hope and I plan on also transferring into other categories. So if I smoke cigarettes, then I will feel X. If I drink alcohol or drink alcohol in excess, this is what will happen to my body. Mm-hmm. If I go out and eat, whatever for breakfast, just fast food all day long for a week, I will feel that these sorts of things are going to start to happen to me because of the nutrients that I'm lacking and the garbage that I'm ingesting. So that's what I hope. I hope for kids that are just like Sophie, just, hey, you know what? I'm not sure that I've been really nourishing myself well lately. And so I think I'm just going to slow down a little bit, hit a little bit of reset button, and we'll be back on track.
And then give them the tools. Okay. So you can take that one step further and say, okay, you're not feeling great right now. What can you do? Can you ingest some protein right now? Can you make sure you're properly hydrated? Mm-hmm. If you've been chugging water all day and you've been outside playing, do you need to add a little pinch of salt to get more electrolytes in there? Do you need some minerals? Do you need to eat a little piece of fruit and have a protein snack with that? Like you can level up that conversation by then giving them the tools to say, okay, I've identified the issue. Now here are my solutions I can go to. I can go take a nap
Mm-hmm.
I can maybe go for a walk. These are the types of things.
Yeah, this is a great thought. The activity side of this. I know I don't know if you have any other questions about this. I don't want to go move on too far, but if your kid, like, you can feed them according to what they're doing. So if they're going to go sit in school, right? So we're in summertime now. Well, most kids are out of school right now. So if they're in school, man, a big bowl of cereal right beforehand is probably the worst thing you can give them, right? You're gonna get their glucose levels up, ready for like action.
Mm-hmm.
And my kid's acting out. Like it might be something you could consider.
Mm-hmm.
What are they eating? What's their diet?
Mm-hmm.
Are we sending our kid to school just in like a hyper state, like a sugar high, right?
Yeah.
And then by the time they get home, they're crashing. They're kind of moody. They're grumpy. Man, let's think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, hey, it's summertime, and it's Saturday. Our kids have a soccer game, and they wake up in the morning, and it's like, let's have some toast and some fruit. Yeah.
But then they're running outside.
They're going to play soccer.
You might think it's school that's causing them to act out.
Hook them up.
It's the activity.
Hook them up with some carbs. They're going to need it.
Yeah.
I mean, don't hit them with too much protein right before a soccer game.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be like carrying that around. It takes a while to digest. It's a little bit harder to metabolize. Well, it takes a little bit longer to metabolize.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, man, the way we approach our kids with glucose is the same way we approach it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about it with them. I mean, as young as 6 and 7 years old.
Yeah.
Our youngest.
We talk about it with Ray.
But like, she's our least, I think probably because she's our most nourished baby. Like,
we don't really. Yeah.
What I just say, she was like eating tomato soup and sauerkraut for lunch. I mean, it didn't have protein in it, but I was like, she's eaten stuff that I honestly sometimes have a hard time choking down. Like she had beans and rice as well. So it's like or just the beans actually. She's got a very open palate right now. Like she hasn't
hit that stage.
She hasn't hit that picky eating stage yet. Yeah. I mean, in some tired states she has, but not in general. Okay, so that's great. I hope that was a helpful conversation.
Next question.
This one was, what were the main foods that spiked your glucose? And so what I did is I went through my Levels app and I looked at my old history of my meal logs, and it gives you a score of like, this is how well your meal scored in terms of how high or not high you spiked in your blood sugar. And remember, a gentle rise and fall in blood sugar is fine. I'm not trying to flatline my glucose levels. That is not my goal. I think you can artificially create that reality by cutting out all carbs, but that's not my goal. So I looked it up. My very, very worst score that I recorded in the 8 weeks was a 66 milligram per deciliter rise. So if you remember anything over 30 points, I say points because it's just easier. Anything over 30 milliliters per deciliter is considered a spike, quote, okay. Meaning you're exceeding you're hitting the top of your energy kind of threshold for your body. I was 66, so I doubled that. And that was eating a clementine, a beef taco, and a protein shake, which is fascinating because I have protein in that meal. I recall that meal. I ate the clementine first. I think what happened also is I was like very hungry, and so I had dipped below baseline. So I was like, I need a clementine quickly to bring me back up. And then I ate a beef taco, which had a carb attached to it. And then I had a protein shake. And so I think, again, that's kind of where that order comes into play. But that's how my body responded in that moment.
Any sugar in the protein shake, or was this a sugar-free?
Let's see. Was this a homemade protein shake or a little more like a powder situation? I can't remember. But that's a good point too. I might have had extra
maple syrup or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good point. I might have done that. We've since switched to it just has monk fruit in it now. We don't have any extra maple syrup or anything in our protein shakes. The next one was a beef taco. So this happened in like 3 days. I was like eating the same lunch and it was like a beef taco. And every time for some reason, I think it was a tortilla or something, it was like my body was not super thrilled with that. Gave it a score of 2.
Flour tortilla?
Yeah, 59 milligram per deciliter increase. Pepperoni and potato chips, score of 3, had a 39. So some of my jumps are like 39 milligrams per deciliter, 44, 41, 46, and then 32 and 34, which are pretty moderate. Things like steak and sourdough pizza. I had the steak first and the sourdough pizza, but it still wasn't enough. Like that protein probably wasn't enough to offset the amount of carb I was consuming after. Sandwich and pretzels, 2 carb-laden foods, spiked me. And then coffee with maple syrup had a 46 milligram per deciliter increase. So I'm just sharing that openly, my log. There's nothing, you can extract whatever you want from that, but that's literally just the results of me scanning my arm after consuming these things, knowing I don't have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. I'm not a diabetic. This is just my body's response. Every time my body came back to baseline, fine. So my insulin is fine. But the point is there a way that I could have added more fiber or more protein to those meals? And is there a way I could have eaten them in a specific order, or at least then moved or matched my energy output when I was consuming that?
Yeah, because I think we zoom out on this question a little bit. What items spiked your blood sugar the most? Right, that's kind of the question. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Which foods, but it's a combo of food and energy output.
Exactly. And I think I would caution the person or the people listening to that with...
Don't eat a clementine.
Yeah, like don't hear that say, because this is why I cannot wait to get one of these. When I go on do something really high, I am more physically active than you are, maybe significantly.
And I'm pretty active.
You're active.
Yeah.
But when I go do something really, really high, like energy exertion, I want high amount, at least I think. Right now, it's been the way that I've been doing things. I want high intake of carbs and sugar.
I mean, when you're running a marathon or running 18 miles, yeah, you absolutely do.
And not only before I start, but even during.
Yeah. I'm
consuming these sorts of things. And actually, one of the main things that I will use when I am running long distance, I will take a orange and I'll open it all up, peel it. I'm not a huge sliced orange guy. Another conversation, but I like it peeled.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. And then I'll salt it. So I'd salt the orange. So salted oranges really did well for me. Once I'd hit like the hour mark of a run, I could eat the orange and I could feel it like almost like trickle into my body, like my energy would be restored, and I could keep running longer.
And you get that good sodium because you're probably sweating.
Totally. Yeah.
You're kind of a big salt expender.
I'm a very salty sweater, which is
a thing. Like you can know whether you're a salty sweater or not. And you come home, you have crusted salt on your...
It's tough. Yeah.
And your hat has a salt line on it.
It's kind of gross.
Some people just are. And you have to know that when you're training, because there's a great Andrew Huberman podcast on that if you haven't listened to it. But if you can understand your salt output in an intense workout, you can understand the level of electrolytes and minerals that you need to restore after. And it's just interesting how everyone's body's totally different.
Anyways, I would hear what things really spiked your, because like spike, it sounds so scary.
Sounds freaky.
It's like, don't have spikes. This is education, so you can use it to how you are living. If I were to give loose, soft recommendations, right? Soft recommendations, I would say utilizing glucose understanding and education based on your lifestyle is the best way to look at it, rather than I want to avoid spikes at all costs, because there are going to be times in your life where you need that.
There's a great quote from an article I'm going to link in the show notes. We can use our blood sugar as insight to determine whether we've filled the right fuel tank and which fuel we need right now. That's exactly how I want people to see this glucose conversation. Have you fueled your body in the right way? Is your tank full? Because once you reach that, your tank is full. You don't need more. But you're going to determine the amount that we're utilizing by other things, by the stress in your life. It's interesting. One of my top stressors was a time when I was also presenting in class, which anytime you have a emotional mental stressor, your body's like, okay, I got to rev up. I got to, get some adrenaline pumping. That can impact your glucose blood levels, which is interesting. Again, it's just your body. It's like gasoline in a car.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. Like I get home and I've had just a crazy day. It's like, why do I feel so drained and why do I want cookies? It's just like, that is my...
It's probably why emotional eating is a real deal.
you're dealing with a ton of stress. You come home, your glucose has been spiked, and then you tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's other spikes, right? Your cortisol, other things are getting increased, but
watch out for that.
So yeah, I think it's a food conversation, which just know that if you're eating a lot of carbohydrate and fat combo together, think of like a potato chip. Potato chips fried in oil, so you've got fat and carb there. Potato chips were one of my top things, even though I was eating it with pepperonis. Just think about, that's a really energy dense food. I don't even want you to fear it. Just know it's energy dense. Because remember, you have protein, carbs, and fat. Carbs and fat can both be your fuel. Your body can use both. It can use protein in a very expensive way where it converts protein into glucose, and it's a very expensive process. And honestly, it doesn't happen that easily in the body. So just understand that when you're eating a fuel dense snack, just match it. Or change. Hey, I don't need that. I don't need that hardcore of a fuel hit right now. I'm going to eat something a little lighter.
Right on. Next question.
I eat a lot of mixed dishes, i.e. casseroles. How can I best regulate my glucose? So this person is responding to us talking about ordering your food when you're sitting down for dinner. Say you have a veggie, a starch, and a protein. You eat your veggie, aka your fiber first, then your protein, then your carb.
And this person's saying, hey, mine's all mixed together.
Okay, so number one thing is totally fine and normal.
Yeah.
I have friends who literally will pick apart their sandwiches to eat in the right order. I think that's fine if you want to go that hard on it, but I'm never one to be like, oh, never eat a mixed food. I would just add on to that meal a small salad in the beginning of that meal. Hit it with your fiber and your veggie first. A small side of roasted veggies. Roasted broccoli is incredible. We did green beans last night before our burgers because that was a mixed meal, right? We had a bun and a, cheese and burger meat, beef patty, and all those things. So add something green, or it doesn't have to necessarily be the color green, but add a veggie in front. It's one of her hacks in the book, a veggie starter, and add that to your meal, and then sit down and enjoy your chicken pot pie or your spaghetti and meatballs or anything.
We do this kind of thing.
We do that all the time. So. Bonus points if you want to add in a little apple cider vinaigrette or something and bring in some of the acetic acid, because if you remember, that also helps your muscles uptake glucose quicker and with less insulin. Okay. Let's see. Some people asked, what about monk fruit and stevia? And we didn't address this because we were just talking about sugar. And I believe monk fruit and stevia both fall in the sugar alcohol category, which isn't something I know a ton about. So we don't personally, we have monk fruit in our protein, but we don't personally use stevia. I don't like the taste. So
I personally am hyper anti stevia just because I dislike it.
Yeah.
Straight up. Don't like it. Think it tastes bad. I don't know when to use it. So for me, from like a chef point of view, not even from a health point of view.
Yeah.
Zero health point of view, because I don't know anything about it. I don't like it. So we don't use stevia here. If we had it here, I wouldn't use it. So we did see some testing on your front a few times that I can remember, where you would have a protein shake that was sweetened with monk fruit, and we saw very minimal spiking. Now, again, we're talking very minimally sweetened. You can tell it's very low sweetened.
What's the carb? What is it? Was like 3 grams carbs?
Something like that.
Very low, like less than 5 grams.
Carbs. Now, my guess is if you picked a monk fruit and ate it, you would probably see, because there's fructose going on in there.
And this is extract, monk fruit extract. Again, this is sugar alcohol, totally. I believe. So I don't believe the sugar alcohols increase your blood glucose levels, but there's also other things to consider, right? Are they naturally occurring? Are they things that you want to consume? Some people say yes, some people say no. So we'll leave that as
we don't use stevia
as a question mark. CGM brands and cheaper options. The brand I was talking about is actually a Levels app. Levels is the brand. And what it does is they send you in their Levels branded box a Libre branded CGM. So you put the little white round thing into your arm. It inserts a little fiber into the back of your arm, and it reads the blood glucose level. Sorry, not the blood glucose. It reads the glucose levels between your fat cells in the back of your arm. That's how it works. That itself is made by a CGM company. And then Levels is like an app data company. What would you call that? An app company. And they...
Like software as a service?
Software, yeah.
A SaaS company?
Yeah. And so what they do is I have 2 apps on my phone. I have the Libre Link app, which connects to the actual monitor and gives me my actual reading, but no other data. Just looks like a little chart, and this is your current glucose. And then I linked that to the Levels app, which you download separately. And that's the lifestyle app that gives you all that extra information. You can log in your food. You can log in your exercise. So it's like, yes, you're paying a premium price for that. But if you didn't read the book and have a bunch of extra time to dig into it, you could just go in cold to the Levels app and you could learn along the way. But you can absolutely just get the Libre Link CGM. I think it's like $86 right now on sale for a full month's worth of sensors.
And then you could track your blood.
You could just track it yourself, and you wouldn't get any of the information in the Levels app. You wouldn't get your like meal scores or your time of spike or any of that, but you would see your chart. And so you could know, okay, well...
There's no time associated with that?
Yeah, there's time associated with it.
So you do get your timestamps.
You get your timestamps, but you don't get the time. Like, Levels will literally tell you you've been spiking for an hour and 36 minutes. Because it will track, and you'd have to really scroll into the Libre Link app, and it's more elementary in its design. It's just meant for diabetics who are like, I just need to know my score.
Yeah.
Whereas Levels is really tailoring to the health and wellness community that don't have diabetes but want to lifestyle hack their way to health, basically. Yeah. So you can get whichever there's like Dexicon or all these other ones. You can get whatever you want. I'm not affiliated with any of them, so I don't care. But you can it's cheaper without the extra lifestyle app of Levels. Someone asked how long it takes to balance glucose with the tips in the book if your glucose is dysregulated. And for me, I'm sure there's...
Whoa. What does that mean? Don't answer that yet. So hold on. What does that say?
How long does it take to balance your glucose with the tips in the book, like the hacks, if your glucose is dysregulated?
Okay. So we're making some assumptions here. We're saying that we put the CGM in and we identify it's dysregulated. What does that mean?
You're spiking super high and dipping super low.
So if you're seeing dips and spikes, what's causing the dips and spikes?
Your blood glucose.
Okay, but what?
What you're eating.
Okay, so
that was how I was going to answer this question.
Okay.
So your confusion is right on, because for me, I know that there are overarching things that impact the way our body can handle carbs, and everything from the amount of fat we have on our body to our stress level and all of that. So yes, there are overarching things that we could work on to lower our blood glucose levels or more regulate it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to everyday meal choice.
Okay, yeah, that's so basically you don't know what's spiking your blood sugar.
You can regulate it next meal
until you start tracking what you've been eating, or what activities you've been doing, or what stress you've been under.
Exactly.
So knowing your blood sugar at certain times of the day and knowing what happened during those times, that's how you'll know that it's dysregulated and what the potential causes are, and then making adjustments to those causes.
Yeah,
that's what you do.
That's what you do. It's not like...
There's no perfect science. It's not like you get like a test that shows hey, like we're noticing you have dysregulated blood sugar.
A high A1C will tell you how many, I believe it is, red blood cells have been glycated by glucose in the bloodstream. So there's definitely markers that you can take to say like, hey, you've had some dysregulated blood sugar for a while. But it's, for me, and as someone who is not diabetic, it's more of like meal by meal, how can I flatten the curve, not completely flat line it, but how can I avoid the super high spikes? And a lot of that is just matching your food with your energy. It's the same, it's an ongoing conversation, right?
And also just tracking how you feel.
Yeah.
Because everybody's gonna be a little bit different, right?
Oh, everyone will be, again.
So if you're rolling into this question thinking to yourself,
well, Liz can't handle a clementine, so neither can I. It's not the case.
Yeah, you might be feeling, man, I feel it crashing, and I feel like I'm, high energy, low energy, just very sporadic. You might be making the assumption, maybe correct, that you've got dysregulated, glucose levels. In which case, you might want to make some adjustments or changes. But yeah, I mean, being scared of a clementine, I would never.
No. And I don't think this person is. I think they were just basically saying, like, how long? Like, do you have to start? And this, I guess, is my short answer. I think they're saying, do you need to enact these basic tips and then it takes a while for your body to catch up? And I would say, no, you can start this today and say, hey, let's reorder your let's reorder your food intake to see how your blood glucose responds. Or, hey, let's try walking for 10, 20 minutes after your meal. And right there, your body can adapt to what you've eaten. So I think it's more real time. And that's why I love a CGM for that real time feedback loop, because you can see what's working. And I assume that the more you run your life in a way that has a regulated blood glucose, the more carb tolerant you will be and the easier your life will be going forward.
If you know it's dysregulated and you have it tracked and you can track what happened during the times of, dysregulation, you can attempt to avoid that.
Exactly.
Or tweak it or experiment with new things.
Yeah. Next question is, I think this will be more of just a topic of conversation for us, but someone said, how do you avoid a diety mindset when approaching glucose? AKA, how do you avoid stressing too much about what you eat? I'm going to let you give me your thoughts on that first.
This idea, it sounds like this person doesn't want to get into the world of diets. In most cases, I agree. I think we agree. Yeah, diets, but I guess it's also like, what do we mean by diet? Do we mean, like, how do we not become restrictive? Well, it's the education of glucose that's important here, not the avoiding of things that are going to make your glucose rise or fall, because inevitably you're going to need those rises and falls. The thought that I have, and this is kind of going back to what we talked about a little bit already, is this understanding of your glucose is going to apply extremely different from person to person, from kid to adult to, I'm over the age of 60. How active am I? What am I doing on a regular basis? And so even from me to you, it's going to be very different.
Yeah.
When I go to work, I get, maybe 10 to 15,000 steps in at work. Because it's a service-focused job.
And you had a lot of stairs.
I have a lot of stairs with no elevators. I'm moving a lot.
Yeah.
So my breakfast might and possibly should look different than yours. Because when your day starts, yeah, you work, but like you're in the house and you're with the kids. You're not, rushing around, running and picking up big, heavy loads of, supplies and carrying them upstairs and.
Yeah.
The maybe the stress levels, of being at home could be high. Maybe they won't, maybe they aren't. Regardless, it's not like
they can be high.
Yeah, chaos maybe. The
chaos from irrational human beings.
Totally.
Which I think people can also experience in the workplace.
I got some irrational human beings that the if you're an athlete, if you're a baby, right? All these things matter. We have a 3-year-old. She's probably running right now. She's insane. She's crazy. So the food that she's eating, she is metabolizing that differently.
Yeah. And you know how you know that too? You look at her and she's not storing excess body fat.
No. Yeah. And she's generally happy. She's, wakes up in the morning in either a where's mom mood or in a happy mood, right? And I don't know. So how to not get into a diety mindset? I guess for me, you could ask that question about anything, kind of.
Yeah.
Right? So and I'm not trying to be. It's not trying to be a cop out, right? It's the more you learn about food and the more educated you are about it, you can make decisions for you. So if you want to spike your blood sugar, again, that sounds so bad. Like, spike it. Well, I spike mine all the time. Intentionally. I'm like, about to go run 6 miles. I'm going to spike my blood sugar quick before I go.
Yep. Eat an energy dense
Spike
food.
it. I eat something with energy before I go run. I'm not thinking in my head like, I'm going to spike my blood sugar really quick.
Yeah, I guess because maybe you're utilizing that energy right away. So we're not even sure what your body's doing yet. You're not waiting to the point till you're like,
on the crash.
Actually, I'm going to go run.
No, definitely not.
You're eating energy-dense foods on purpose. That's how I would rephrase what you just said, because you're not intentionally saying, I'm going to eat an energy-dense food and go
You're right. You're right. I'm eating it. It's again.
But I understand what you're saying.
And so if utilizing education and knowledge to shape the way you eat for the objectives that you have. So if you have the objective to lose weight, you can use this information along with other information. If you have the objective to gain weight, you can use this information along with other information to achieve that.
Yeah.
Are those diets? Well, is a diet just an objective? If your objective is just to have higher energy and be a higher performing person,
yeah.
If that's the diet, then I'd say maybe you are in a diet mindset.
Yeah, I think
I don't know. It just feels like it's tainting something here, but in reality, it's use the education however you see fit for you.
Yeah. I think what this person is probably actually asking is, how do you not fear carbs?
Okay.
But I think that them asking it in this way is really insightful, because they're asking, hey, I don't want to get too, I want to be anti-diet culture here. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. And I think it was Lahana who was like, listen, I'm all for being anti-diet culture, like in terms of, hey, let's not listen to what mainstream media has to say at every turn about what I should eat, because we know that like they're going to sway with the wind. I'm going to be low fat here, low carb here, whatever. But she's also like, I'm also kind of anti-diet culture, because she's like, I think we should have intentionality and awareness in what we're eating. And if that means I have a diet, then I just think it's a misused fear in that word diet. Your diet is just the foods that you eat and the activity level that you maintain, right? So I think, how do you avoid having a restrictive mindset, or how do you avoid having a fear of carbs, is really this person's question. But I just want to encourage everyone too, like, you can have, as Joey said, you can have health objectives, and you can say no to foods that you're like, that doesn't align with my health objective right now. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. You can sit in there and be healthy without being a person with an eating disorder.
And I would actually, personally, for me, I would highly encourage some form of objective in life.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going?
Yeah.
Because... And then consider that objective and say, is this going to be healthy for me and promote longevity?
Right.
Unless you don't want longevity, which would be surprising to me.
Maybe
so, hey,
YOLO is a thing.
I want a shorter life. Okay, well, interesting. But having an objective allows you to work towards something intentionally and also stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was talking to a buddy recently, and we were discussing alcohol, and he's like, Joe, I just need to give you credit that you came out to this campfire with all us dudes and we're all drinking, and literally no one there knew that you weren't. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, no one knew that you weren't drinking. I'm like, oh,
what does that mean?
I wasn't hiding the fact that I was drinking bubbly water at this campfire. He's like, no, I just mean that, oftentimes you'll talk to people that have this mindset of, I'm not drinking alcohol, and then it's like, oh, sorry guys, I'm not drinking today, or I don't drink anymore. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm not drinking because it's a health choice that I'm making, because I want to perform better as a runner, I picked up another soccer league, so as a soccer player, and lifting, I'm like, I want to lift better, I want to have high energy, I want to be able to perform in the businesses that we have. So therefore, I've chosen not to drink alcohol right now, because it causes me to typically perform worse in those environments. And he was like, yeah, he's like, having an objective like that and making a decision like that is completely different than this choice of not drinking and then walking around telling everybody that you don't and making people feel bad and having it be this like identity that you don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that person. We all know the person that walks around. And
I think I've been that person.
Have you?
Yeah, I think I have.
Well,
which in different regards, like, oh, I'm not, maybe not recently, or maybe recently, I don't know. But yeah, I think we've all been there, right? Is we can have an objective out of like, oh, I just need to lose weight. So yeah, I'm not eating that right now. I'm trying to cut back. Or we can just make keep it to ourselves and say that I'm so excited that I'm chasing after this goal, and I can honor my body and my family around me by making these choices and be happy about it. I think that's the difference, right? Begrudgingly making a health objective, like, because I've been there, and also like, hey, I'm excited to try this. And
so I would just say that for me, and apparently for my buddies, having an objective for your health can help you really chase after something in a humble way that is healthy for you and the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so this deity mindset, I kind of also see that as, how do you not become this, I'm superior to you because I do this sort of thing.
Yes.
This mentality of
I get pegged that a lot.
Right. I don't drink. Okay, we're going out to the bar tonight. I don't go to bars. Like, dude, if I have friends that I want to hang out with and see invite me to a bar, guess where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to the bar. Do I need to drink alcohol to hang out with my friends? No. Do I need to make them feel weird and uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Heck no. If they offer me a beer, I'm just like, no thanks. I'm not like, oh, sorry, I don't drink, right? I'm not like a weirdo about it. So I think with the same ridiculous, overly explained example.
No, I think that's good. It resonates.
Hey, you're regulating your glucose because you have an objective. If your objective is, I don't want to spike, I think that's not necessarily the greatest objective.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, like, if that's it, I never want to spike. For what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because, I want to have higher energy levels. Well, for what?
Yeah, if that's your objective, then you're going to go keto, eat a bunch of fat, and you're going to have the flattest curve ever. But that might not be serving your body.
It's
right.
Yeah, I think people, exactly. So, hey, I want to improve my health. I want to have longevity. I want to have better joint, whatever. Right. I want to be more active.
Here's a great example of this, and you'll remember the glucose score.
And this is just for me, probably.
After we went for dinner. We went to a nice dinner with my parents, and bread is always the first thing served at the table. Mm-hmm. And everyone went for the bread, and I waited. And someone could have been like, oh, you're going to have some bread? No one asked me, but had they asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get some bread, but I'm just going to eat my salad first. And if you remember, I ate my salad first, then I had my bread. We had some oysters some raw oysters as a appetizer as well, and then I had a steak. And a side of fries, French fries. This is like at a very nice steakhouse though. So it was like so good. Mm-hmm. And my score that night, and I had a glass of wine. My score that night was like a 9.
Did you have wine?
9 out of 10. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I had great response in terms of my glucose stability. It was like a 9 out of 10, which is very positive. And so in those instances, you could be out to dinner with friends or whatever, and they're all digging into their bread, and you could say like, oh yeah, I can't eat that. Or you can just be like, I'm just going to eat my salad first.
I think this would be a perfect example of how our tagline, education
equals food freedom.
Yeah. So if you're looking for food freedom, right? Food education is food freedom. Yeah. And you had a very free night that night. From a food perspective. French fries, bread, wine and dine.
It's fantastic.
And rolled home and felt great.
I didn't have dessert because I was like, I don't really need it.
Did I have dessert?
No, we didn't.
But yeah, I think it was just because we were stuffed.
Oh yeah, we were just full. Wasn't like, oh, I'm scared. It was just like, I've had a great meal. I'm done. It was great.
We weren't tracking my blood sugar, but I had the bread first because I was hungry for that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't, and I tracked mine, and it turned out really, really well.
So I guess it's hard to answer that question from like a definitive way.
I think this conversation.
How to avoid diety mindset when approaching glucose.
It's how do you avoid any conscious decision around your food without a diety mindset?
It's just, what's your objective with your health? What's your objective? Is the objective to talk about the things that you're doing with your health? Because everything's going to become a diety mindset. I mean, you can literally be the person that says, I don't do diets.
Mm-hmm. And that's your diety mindset.
That's your diety mindset, right? That's like, oh, I eat whatever I want to all the time.
That's your diet.
That's your diety mindset.
So I think, like, to your point, just having any kind of definition around your goal when you're eating and moving your body is going to help you. I think the diet piece too is like when you're just eating for the sake of vanity, which is what I was doing as a teenager, right? I'm going to cut this and I want to lose weight and I want to be as skinny as possible, right? I had an eating disorder, so I had a clear objective. I had zero food education. Didn't know a thing. Just assumed. And really depleted my body in a number of ways. And so it's like if you don't have any extra motivation behind, I want to look a certain way, then anything's going to feel like a diet. Anything. But if you're like, I want to lose body fat so that I can be more capable physically to carry my kids around the park. Yeah, you want to lose body fat, you're going to change the way you look, but that's not the main reason why you're doing that. You want to, or I need to put on muscle so that I am stronger. I need to gain weight, not so that I have a big butt and look good, although that might be a side benefit, but so that I can be strong and I can walk the 3 miles to the beach when we go on vacation, right? So there are external factors that play into your objective in health, and that's how you avoid a diet for diet's sake mindset, I think.
That's good.
You know? The last question, and something I wanted to get into, which I thought was really interesting, has to do with, do smaller meals better regulate your glucose than larger meals?
Interesting.
And it's funny because my dad asked me the same thing after he listened to the show. And we were kind of like workshopping it together. Because again, I'm just a lay person. I'm not a nutritionist or a medical personnel. I'm just digesting this information and seeing how my body responded through the 8 weeks of a CGM. And for me, I would say it depends on what those small meals are, right? It came down to like, well, if I was eating a handful of crackers every hour and a half, I would say, no, my body was continuously on this roller coaster. That's not help regulating. And if you are someone who's living in this space of, I have to snack every 90 minutes, I have to have food with me. There's actually an example in the book of a woman who went from having to travel around all day long with snacks in her purse to having this idea of metabolic flexibility. And as it's described in the book, The Glucose Revolution, it's this idea that, hey, once your body has used the fuel just consumed by the food that you ate, or that has just come in, then we can switch over to utilizing your stores really seamlessly. We can really, because like you're carrying glycogen in your liver and in your muscles and in your fat. You're carrying energy in your fat. So we can tap into those, and there's a certain hierarchy of what we do. First, we deplete in our liver and then our muscles and then our fat circulating in our bloodstream and then the fat stored in our body as fat cells. So you're talking about like fat around your hips, your stomach, your butt, all those things. So if you understand that hierarchy and you understand whether or not you've got fuel to burn, then you know, hey, I'm okay. Like I'm okay to not be around food every 90 minutes. I'm okay to have longer stretches in between my meals. I'm not saying we're intermittent fasting here. I'm saying you can eat a satiating, nourishing meal and then 3 hours later eat another satiating, nourishing meal and not have this like crazy dip in your glucose in between.
Because glucose, well, let's talk about this a little bit beyond just the eating, because we can regulate our blood sugar without eating. I think that's the major factor here that I've identified through our conversations. Your blood sugar can go up and down whether you've eaten or not. So that right there is
if you're not diabetic.
If you're not diabetic.
If your pancreas is functioning properly.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You can. I think you will, but you can regulate your blood sugar without eating, in which case
your bodies are designed impeccably.
So smaller meals, very interesting question. They can definitely affect the way your blood sugar is regulated, right? But also, you should be able to do both, I guess is the thought. Or you can do both.
And I would say I would say Jesse's Lean, the author of the book, her push is for you to have more metabolic flexibility and to really be able to last in between meals without having to snack. She would say, no, 3 meals a day and maybe 1 snack is kind of your goal, because you should be eating enough of the right nutrient-dense, satiating foods. I'm not sure how much nutrient density you can cram into a little snack. especially if you're like, I'm hungry an hour and a half later. It's like, okay, well, what'd you snack on, you know? So I think the idea of, and again, this gets into another philosophy, which I don't think we have time to discuss today, but maybe in a future episode. There's an alternative philosophy, which is this idea that if we keep fueling our body consistently with high energy foods, then we'll be good to go. We should eat little snacks throughout the day to stoke the fire. Have you ever heard people say that? Oh, you should eat 6 smaller meals every day to stoke your internal metabolism fire so that your metabolism burns hotter. This is a theory, okay? This basically is the opposite of the idea that we can regulate our glucose, because this is continually stoking a really a hot fire. And so for me, I feel better when I eat 3 solid meals a day, maybe 1 snack, personally. Now, other people might be different. My energy levels, my output right now, I'm rucking like 3 times a week, which means I go on like a 3 to 4 mile walk carrying 25 pounds. For at least, that takes me about an hour every time, 45 minutes if I'm booking it, which I've done recently. It's hard work. And then I'm trying to weight train occasionally, and I walk. I'm up and about in the day. Like I feel like I'm pretty active. I'm not like hardcore hitting the gym every single day, but in general, I feel pretty active. And so with that current level of activity, I feel like 3 meals and 1 snack a day is good for me.
So, I mean, I'm not snacking all the time. And now I'm down from, well, let's, I mean, if I think back to my current data, I am probably lifting for 30 to 35 minutes for a lifting session. And that's resistance training. So we're talking like a barbell workout. So benching, squatting, deadlifts, pull-ups.
But you're resting in between.
Core, sit-ups.
You're not doing it for time.
Not high intensity. No, I'm not doing that. And then I'm running about 20 to 25 miles a week in addition to that. Plus my job is, you're
on your feet.
I'm on my feet all day.
It's like if you were a nurse in a hospital.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So with that lifestyle, which again, even this morning I woke up and you were like, aren't you starving? You lifted and ran yesterday.
I woke up starving. And
I just wasn't. I was like, no, I'm not really that hungry. I had 2 pieces of bacon. And then about an hour and a half later, I had a protein shake. And
you're also a dude.
That's what I did. And then lunchtime, I had grilled cheese, tomato soup.
It was a pretty low protein lunch, but it's because we're very low on groceries.
We are. It's true.
We're trying to be smart.
I did not wake up starving. And I need a huge breakfast. Some days I don't eat breakfast. I don't always eat breakfast. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just how it goes.
Yeah, and I think you would thrive and you would be fine if you were like intermittent fasting 3 days a week or something, and you just extended your waking hours without food.
Dinner times I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah.
I get pretty hungry at dinner.
Yeah. For me, it's a no question. I'm eating when I wake up.
I'm eating typically I probably average a little over 1,000 calories for dinner.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal.
Is it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Maybe closer to 700, but I don't know. So, the only other caveat, extra piece of clarity that I wanted to discuss on this episode in regard to the glucose conversation was a reframing of the way that insulin is used in the body, because the way that insulin is talked about in the book and with my experience with the CGM is that its whole goal is to help shuttle the glucose that we take into its various storage units, right? We talk about that. We're like, okay, you eat something glucose rich or energy dense. I'm going to start saying that, energy dense. And then your body can only maintain a certain level of glucose in the bloodstream. So it needs to store the other glucose away, convert it to glycogen in the liver and in the muscles, and then store it as fat to protect your body. The other way that I've heard this described, and this makes not more sense, they're both are true, but the other way that I think is maybe beneficial to the listener, if this is the place that they're in, is that insulin is also utilized to kind of slow the flow of the glycogen being converted back into glucose. So us using our stores as energy when we consume the glucose in our food. So if you think about, say you're someone who just ate a piece of chocolate cake, your insulin will increase because it's trying to say like, oh guys, we have enough energy flowing in the bloodstream coming from the digestive tract, so we don't need to keep converting low levels of glycogen into glucose from the liver and the muscles as we do on a daily basis, because we've actually got another fuel source coming in through our food. So two people can eat the same piece of chocolate cake. One has very low levels of body fat and one has higher levels of body fat. And the person with higher levels of body fat will experience more insulin response, not because of they're eating more cake, but because it takes more insulin to keep the taps kind of sealed, because they've got more fat stored in their body. They have more energy stored in their body than the person with lower body fat. And like you and me as an example, you have lower body fat than I do for sure. And so you could eat the cake and your insulin might increase a little, but then come back down. And my insulin, I might need more insulin to keep all my stores so that my body can utilize the food that I'm using. So some people correlate.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's neither.
Okay.
But the issue is some people correlate, my insulin is spiking, I have high insulin, and that's why I'm overweight. And really the opposite is true. It's you're overweight and that's what's causing the extra insulin. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a shift of mindset. So I don't want people to fear insulin, because insulin is actually a really powerful tool and we want it to keep working. Otherwise we will be diabetic. And so one of the very best ways that you can regulate your blood sugar and insulin response is to lower your body fat. And I just think that that's an important piece of this conversation, because you can manipulate your day-to-day spikes by your diet. You can go ketogenic and basically flatline because you're not eating carbs and you're fueling your body with fat. But that would just be a cover-up to an overall symptom of like, hey, you've got a lot of energy on board that you need to tap into. Now, if you go keto for long enough, maybe you'll lose some of that excess body fat and then you'll kind of become more regulated. But it's just another layer to the conversation to say, yes, it's what you're eating on a day-to-day basis can help you regulate. This comes back to that person's question of like, how long does it take to regulate your blood sugar? I think it depends on who you are. And if you have excess amount of body fat stored because you've consumed too much energy for your output, then the closer you get to your ideal body fat, the more regulated you will be. Your body will require less insulin when you eat something sugary or glucose or energy rich, if it has less stored energy to kind of hold back. Does that make sense? So again, both kind of scenarios, descriptions of insulin are true and helpful. But I just want to encourage people, if they're like, I'm freaked out about my insulin, or insulin's the enemy, not the case. And that another level of regulating glucose is to actually change your body composition, which is something we've talked about, right? Increase muscle mass, decrease fat mass when appropriate, and then figure out like move your body and nourish your body. So that's
good stuff.
That's kind of it.
I dig it.
Yeah. Are you still fascinated? Are you still getting a CGM?
Oh yeah. I would love to.
Cool.
I just can't wait to. I'm less interested in like what does my normal day look like?
And more interested for performance training?
Like almost exclusively, to be honest.
Which is fine. That's your current
because that's
objective.
There you go. Right? There you go.
Yeah.
I have an objective. It has almost nothing to do with, day to day, like, I'm scared of carbs. I'm not at all.
Right.
It's more of a, man, if I'm going to be on a long run, or if I'm going to be doing a lift, or if I'm playing a soccer game, what can I do to optimize my health for those certain situations?
Yeah.
And it just comes out of a hyper competitive state that I live in every single day.
Yeah.
So
I don't share that with you.
You don't share it.
I don't. I'm more intellectual. I'm more like, I want to understand how my body's working, and I want to feel good is what I want. I don't care so much about like, can I run at this pace this long? I don't really care.
I feel good if I'm seeing myself progress in a victorious sort of way.
Victorious. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll continue the glucose conversation in other podcasts too, but
If you've enjoyed this episode for some reason,
why do you always say that? As if people like you're putting out stuff that you're not.
I'm just saying for some reason. There might be a reason they enjoy it.
Okay.
You could get more. You can find more. We have other episodes if this is the first one you've listened to. First and foremost.
Yes.
Go back and listen to Glucose 101. This is kind of the continuation of that episode.
Right.
So if any of this was like confusing, go listen to that. Mm-hmm. There's a book that we've read on this, Glucose Revolution by
Jesse Inchauspy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so proud of myself.
Killing the last names.
I know.
You read that book. That's kind of where some of our research began, because we've done so much more.
I'm gonna
experiential research and more data.
Yeah, and I'm gonna link a fantastic website. I got a lot of additional information from a website called optimizingnutrition.com, and they have tons of articles. I mean, I probably read a half a dozen articles just on glucose and insulin alone that are really, really helpful if people are interested in this, because it's a topic where if you're like, ooh, I think I can untap some more key health principles, there's a learning curve, you know?
So we've got other episodes. We've got resources that are written as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've got books and curriculum for you and your kids at homegrowneducation.org. Check it out. Go get those. They're digital. They're all $24 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from meal plans to help you have awesome meals that are well-rounded. And a lot of them roll into each other. And what I mean by that is you could cook a meal that kind of rolls into the next meal.
Mm-hmm.
Efficiencies. We like
Efficiency.
that. We've got what's for breakfast, what's for dinner. We got curriculum for your kids and for you in the world of the Real Food Guide. We just wrapped up the Elevate class a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So be on the lookout for the next Elevate class when that happens. And we're kind of working with the team on when that next one's going to happen. We loved it. We had a great time, and we're optimizing to make it even better. So we're always working to improve anything that we do. We don't want to do it the same way twice. YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, hey, good to see you. If you're not, we have a YouTube channel. You could see these videos of these podcast episodes on there. You could see.
We have an unofficially launched YouTube channel, but you can keep talking about it. The podcast portion's on there.
We're going to do other content on there in the future as well. Things like going to pick up our beef, which we bought half a cow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did.
From a good friend, Mike,
Mr.
at
Mike.
the farm. Can't wait to hit up Mike. You could watch me suffer with the CGM on, because that'll be coming at some point. I think so. It sounds like a good time to me.
You're not going to suffer. You're going to be fine.
I say that because I like it, right? I like suffering for some people. For me, it's like enjoyable.
Yeah, it sucks.
So many people are like, man.
I heard it's biblical though, so it's fine.
All right, well, here we are.
You should rejoice in your sufferings.
Go check us out on YouTube. Listen to other podcasts. You can leave us a review if you like or not, whatever. And we've also got Hismar Goods, shoptheh.com. Have you been there? Have you been to shoptheh.com? We're drinking the coffee right now. Outstanding stuff. I have a couple posts to make because I'm on probably cup number 3.
Yeah.
I'm not going to finish this though. So should I say cup 2.5?
2.5? Maybe. Yeah.
Anyways, we got coffee. Third wave coffee. This was new for Elizabeth.
This was new for me.
Somebody come tell me that I'm right, because this is a common phrase.
A third wave. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not up in the coffee lingo as much as you are, apparently.
We define third wave coffee with our discussion with Max.
Yes.
So you might be hearing me say this. You haven't heard our conversation with Max.
Yeah, these episodes are dropping out of
sneak peek. When the Max episode drops, you can go check that out. Coffee, we've got tea. Outstanding tea. Loose leaf.
Certified organic, certified fair trade.
Outstanding tea. Good stuff. We got soaps, body soaps, dish soap. Working on the sponge. I think we're just about there. We've been refining the dish sponge for a while now. We're learning. We know more about sponges than a lot of people.
I think if people knew how much I was caring about the sponge they were using for their dishes, they would they would feel bad for me.
We put a lot of effort into figuring out what's the best possible sponge you can clean your dishes with, and we're just about to crack the code on
because here's the thing: we're using a natural sponge, a natural sea sponge, and they have so much variability.
Oh yeah.
Like you buy them based on like about how many inches they're going to be, but that doesn't dictate like how many dips and divots they have. And so we've had a sponge.
The porousness of them, the cavernous qualities from one sponge to the other.
So we've had a sponge, the same quote breed, that we're like, this is amazing. It lasts like a month.
Species.
And then we had the exact same type of sponge that was like, wow, that fell apart in a week. And we were really frustrated by that. And then we got a batch of smaller sponges, and we were frustrated by that as well. And we tried to make everything communicate as clearly as possible to all of our customers. Like, listen, we're so sorry. Like, get a next sponge. Like, you got it. We're in this with you. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we found the sponge.
Yeah, we're getting there. So stay tuned for that. Body soap, dish soap. We've got sourdough kits.
Ruthie used our body soap the other day for the first time, and she was like, ooh, this is so luxurious. Because I hadn't even given them a bar. She loved it.
Dude, Rubes
she's our product tester.
Something else.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
We've also got proofing baskets that are unlike any other proofing baskets. If you make sourdough and you don't have a Hazelmeyer Goods,
you don't make sourdough
proofing basket, like what are we doing? They're just so much better. They're so much better.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I was talking to somebody recently about them, and they were just listening to me talk about the different features and the construction of our proofing baskets, and they were like, I would love that. I'm like, good news. I got one for you. Anyways, go on to shoptheitch.com. You can find all this stuff there, and you can find us if you wanted to hear more from us.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Instagram. We're anything else? Just Instagram, right?
Yep, Instagram.
Elizabeth is at Liz Hazelmeyer. I'm at Joey Hazelmeyer and Homegrown_education. You can find us on all three of those profiles. You can find Hazelmeyer Goods at Hazelmeyer Goods.
Yep.
And until next time, that's a wrap.